I kind of go on how he's doing. Gut feel.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Floyd and I am the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Twitter, as always, at redrock_bball. We're going to be looking back at a busy 9-game Wednesday in the NBA and previewing a very small 3-game Thursday. Michael Bolton.
Let's get to it.
Let's get to it indeed. A quick apology for the state of my voice. It was actually completely rooted at one point in the afternoon, and for those of you in the US that don't know what rooted means, it means screwed. It's sort of come good now. I've got a cup of tea here next to me to try and ease myself through the next 45 to 60 minutes of action, but it could go at any time, so I do apologize for the unusual level of husky sexiness that I am going to bring to this show. Let's start where we always do. On the show, of course,
monstrous line of the night.
It really came down to two blokes for this award, and I'm going with Joel Embiid today of the Philadelphia 76ers. 36 minutes, it was him or Tone Davis. 36 minutes on a back-to-back where he was questionable with knee soreness for both of them. 42 and 18. I think he had 20 and 10 in about the first 5 minutes. He hit a 3. He had 2 assists, 3 steals, 2 blocks, a magnificent 52% from the field on 23 attempts, and 90% from the line on 19 attempts. He is, over the last 2 weeks, the number 2 ranked fantasy player. He's number 8 for the season. He's averaging 27 and 13 and a half. He has missed 2 games all year. He is putting up monster numbers, and literally he can be better than this. He can be this top 3 guy that we've seen over the last 2 weeks. 31 and 16 on 55-84 with 2.6 blocks. They're high numbers, but with the way that this guy plays, there's no reason that he can't be marginally less than that. Say 28 and 13, 28 and 14 with 4 assists, 2 blocks, 2.5 blocks, 52 and 85. That's not unrealistic for Embiid. Not saying that's what he's going to do the rest of the season, because I don't think he will. But he will be a guy that is able to be a comfortable first-round guy and a player that was drafted or in many leagues in that second round. He is putting up some pretty big numbers and has been an absolute steal at the position that he was able to be drafted in many formats. He was a guy that I looked at, I think nearly every draft that I had a pick on the turn, he was the guy that I grabbed, and I've been pretty happy with that decision so far. And again, I think after this season I'll be able to stop saying fingers crossed about injuries, but I'm still saying fingers crossed about injuries. We just hope it doesn't go south.
Waiver wire line of the night.
The waiver wire line of the night is Terry Rozier of the Boston Celtics. This was always on the cards with Kyrie Irving out with that eye issue. Rozier stepped into the starting lineup and put up a really strong performance. 16 points, 3 rebounds, and 5 assists. There's a couple of things there that are a bit fluky. 5 steals, 60% shooting. He had a block. It's been a disaster of a contract year for Terry Rozier this season, but over the last month, he has seen himself jump back up to on the fringes of top 100 value. And you say, how is he doing that? Well, he's playing 24 minutes a night. There's been some injuries. Jaylen Brown's been dealing with issues. He's averaging under 10 points. So where's the value coming from? Well, it's the fact that he's averaging 1.4 steals in that time. And that's an unrealistic amount for him to continue to do. 2.1 steals per 36 minutes. And he, despite that being a almost top 100 guy over the last month, that steal rate's inflated. The minutes numbers are inflated. And I don't think that he's a guy that I'm grabbing. He's more of a 14 or probably even 16 team league guy who is inefficient. He's sporting a sub below average usage. He's not hitting shots. The assists are low. He just isn't doing enough. But of course, if there's a long-term Kyrie Irving injury, or if for some reason he gets traded, and I think that's highly unlikely that Rozier gets traded this season, really unlikely, then his value jumps back up. But that efficiency never shot over 40% in his career. 27, 37, 39.5, and 38.7 for this season across his 4 seasons in the NBA. We talk about Marcus Smart, you talk about ravishing Rick Rubio as piss-poor shooters. No one talks about Rozier. He is a terrible shooter, and he is a massive drain in field goal percentage, which I believe with volume would get potentially worse, or at least the impact would definitely get worse because of the increase in attempts. The deep leaguer of the night goes to Derrick Jones Jr. of the Miami Heat. 31 minutes for Jones with Dwayne Wade out. It's a very surprising amount of playing time here. James Johnson was back, but he only played 17 minutes. Wade was out, but Dion Waiters made his debut. It's hard to get a full read on what Jones is doing, but rostered in only 5% of Yahoo leagues, Jones should be rostered in more of those. He's a top 150 player over the last month in just 21 minutes. Because some of the numbers are pretty dumb. 56% from the field, 1.2 steals, 1.1 block. I probably should tell you what he got today, actually. 13 and 7, 3 threes, 2 assists, 2 steals, and a block for Jonesy. That's 3 steals and 2 blocks in his last 2 games, along with 16 assists and 29 points. Really, really strong numbers. But finding the minutes for him, say the last 4 games before that, 18, 9, 22, and 9 minutes, that doesn't make him, despite, again, that ranking over the last month as being a 12 to 14 team league guy. I don't have full faith in him being able to manage 30 minutes a night. It's just this rotation is bloody difficult to try and figure out how it's going to work on a nightly basis. Olynyk got extra minutes today. Johnson was reduced. Tyler Johnson, Scooter Magruder. Yeah, Wade is out of this one as well. That's 24 minutes that have got to come from somewhere, and they probably come off Jones as well. Will Waiters ramp it back up? It's hard to see him being anything more than a deeper league guy, but these little flashes that he shows, I was wrong on this guy. I thought he was terrible and all he could do was dunk, and that was true for his first 2 seasons in the NBA, but you should never be betting against the Miami Heat's development staff. So many guys here, Richardson, Magruder, Tyler Johnson, Hassan Whiteside. And that's why I really, and I mentioned the other day in my G League show, Yante Maten, who just received G League Player of the Month awards playing with the Heat's G League team, a guy to watch because they develop guys better than pretty much anybody in the NBA. And that's another option here for Derek Jones, who the Suns had. And he didn't look like an NBA player at all. And now he does. It's just finding those minutes in Miami for him to be of use in standard leagues is going to be tough to do. Let's go on to the next one.
Young Gun of the Night.
The young gun of the night is Big Tommy Bryant of the Washington Wizards. Bryant, again, was fantastic. 39 minutes in a victory over the Hawks. 16 and 15 with 2 steals and 2 blocks. I talked this guy up when he was claimed off waivers from the Lakers by the Wizards. I've been a little bit cautious, I guess, over this last bit of time because it's about analysing the numbers and not going in at full mast all the time when talking about these guys. But this is a player that over the last 2 weeks is a top 30 guy. But we do have to analyse what's happened here. And the last 3 games Markieff Morris has missed. He played 30, 36, and 39 minutes. The 2 games prior when Morris played, 14 and 18 minutes. And that is really, really key. Now, he's playing that well that I think they should be getting him at least 25 to 26 minutes a night, but I don't know that Brooks was doing that. Again, just 3 games ago, he played 14 minutes with no foul issue. 1 foul in that time when Morris was back. And previously, he'd been playing 18 minutes a night, 18 minutes a night, 20 minutes a night, 11 minutes a night, and there was no value there. His last run has been super impressive, but it is tying into Markieff Morris's absence. And now Otto Porter's back. That puts Jeff Green back into that mix as well.
My name is Jeff.
So I don't 100% know what they're going to do with Bryant, but you can't leave him on the wire at this point. You've got to add him, but just be prepared. Maybe it's a sell high opportunity. Be prepared for him to be a guy who goes back to playing 18 minutes a night. As stupid as it sounds, given this level of production and how good he's been, and this is just translating what he did in the G League pretty much. I would expect if I had to go one way, I think that he will go back to low 20s rather than high 20s. Yeah, maybe he can stick at 24 to 25 minutes. That would be the ideal to me. In a lost season, they should be trying to develop this guy and see what they can do with him. But that isn't necessarily the way that Scotty Brooks is going to run things. But another massive game from Tom Bryant and a guy that you probably should be adding in all formats.
I tell a man's not hot.
This, also, much like the monstrous line of the night, the dud of the night was a hotly contested category. We had a couple of real strong showings for this one, but in the end, we went with Wendell Carter Jr. of the Chicago Bulls. 13 minutes, 1 rebound. That's it. Literally nothing else. 0 of 5 from the field. Didn't attempt a free throw. No other numbers. Now, admittedly, and he would admit this himself, and he has admitted this himself, he was terrible. He knows that he wasn't good. He wasn't switched on. But Jim Boylen is 100% the worst coach in the NBA, and the second worst coach in the NBA is also Jim Boylen. That is how bad he is. He is a disaster. This team is the slowest team in the NBA since he took over. He's made their best defensive player, Wendell Carter Jr., their prize rookie, and who I think is absolutely 100% their best prospect, even over Markkanen. They have made him gotten worse. They're playing him 4 or 5 minutes fewer per game. And Boylan he contradicts himself every minute. He comes out before this game, I think it was before the game or maybe yesterday, he comes out and says, oh, what I like about Wendell is that when things aren't going right, he really perseveres and pushes through and he can turn bad games into good games. It's a fantastic quality that if he struggles for a stretch of time, he'll come out and work harder and he'll turn those games around. He's done that multiple times this season. I'm paraphrasing what he said, but that's what he did. So then in this game, when he comes out and he struggles, he plays the first 9 minutes and struggles, Boylan decides not to play him again. Doesn't give him that opportunity to turn around. Plays him 3 minutes in the third quarter, then sits him for the final 20 minutes of the game. You're getting your ass kicked. Sure, develop your young guy. Work out how he's going to fit. Make him work through it. It is absolute nonsense. The last 2 games he'd played 30 minutes plus a game. Boylan is a worse coach than Jason Kidd, and I'm sure many of you would never have think you'd heard those words coming out of my mouth. He's a disaster. He has no idea how to treat professional NBA players. He treats them like they're primary school kids. This punishment mentality, it's absolute nonsense. He needs to be fired ASAP. And of course, because this is the worst organization in the NBA, shout out to the Phoenix Suns. The Bulls have got you covered. They won't do it. He is a disaster. He needs to go, and he has got a real chance of ruining not only the team harmony here, but the development of these players. And his ass needs to go. Sorry, Jim. Look, you're a well-respected assistant coach. All that, whatever. And you're a better coach than me, I'm sure. This is bullshit. This is garbage. This is not NBA style. This is not fit for the NBA. You need to go, and you dicked around Wendell Carter Jr. Now, as for Carter, I don't know how I can put trust in him with what Boylan does all these times. Now, the last 2 games, I thought, shit, he's getting back on track. 30 minutes and let's go. Top 50 type potential with him, but yeah, this sort of dickery is a real issue. His field goal percentage hasn't been ideal this season, just under 49%, averaging 10 and 7 with 1.4 blocks. Now, if you're in a strong position in your league, you hold on to Wendell, because I think at some point, Boylan, actually, I was going to say at some point management would come and tell him he's doing the wrong thing, but this is Garpax, who, of course, literally the worst front office in the NBA. They will they'll probably make things worse rather than make things better. But I do think that we'll start to turn it around. And again, the last 2 games, 33 and 33 minutes, 17 and 13 with 3 blocks against the Wizards, 16 and 11 against the Raptors. Big numbers for the Block Panther, but just getting absolutely dicked around by his coach. Really frustrating for all of this stuff for Carter. So if you're in a strong position, I would hold. But my hopes of him getting back to top 50 this season, I think it's going to. He is going to be a top 50 guy in the NBA in the next 3 seasons. I'm pretty confident about that. But this nonsense at the moment is causing some problems. In 10 teamers, you've got to really consider it. In 12 teamers, if you're struggling, you might have to move on. You might have to drop him. You might have to trade him, because the up and down nature of this garbage that goes on with Chicago is obviously having an impact on his overall production. The plus minus go to the day. Kelly Olynyk was a plus 149. This guy just contributes to winning basketball majority of the time. I like him as a player. I think he's a better option than Hassan Whiteside personally. While the worst net rating of the night went to the guy who was competing with Wendell Carter Jr. for the dud of the night, and that is Mike Conley, who was a negative 112.1. He was dealing with a shoulder injury in this game. I think you heard it. It got bumped by Andre Drummond early in the game, and it was clearly bothering him. He didn't hit a single shot. He went scoreless during his time on the court. We don't know anything, but I don't think it's a serious issue. We'll talk about some other issues with the Grizzlies a little bit later on. Shout out to the second worst coach in the NBA, JB Bickerstaff. But this was not a good night for Conley. Thankfully, it's nothing to do with his heel/Achilles. That's a good sign. But he has had shoulder issues in the past, and let's hope that's not a creeping back of that scenario. Other injuries to talk about: Marcus Morris hurt his neck, as did Marcus Smart also got hurt his shoulder. Smart copped a knock on the shoulder with a nerve. He was fine. Morris, not quite as fine, didn't re-enter the game, and he's still sore. I would imagine this is going to cost Morris a little bit of time. He's been putting up great numbers. Not so much today. The shooting was off, but as I detailed yesterday or the day before, that he was putting up like career-type numbers, 10 percentage point higher true shooting, really putting up good numbers, and let's hope this doesn't derail it. We want to see, but I think a small amount of missed time, maybe a game or two, is probably on the cards for Morris. And the future MVP, Kyle Kuzma, had a low back contusion, wasn't able to finish the Lakers game. He will be getting an MRI on that on Thursday. I don't think it's too serious, but of course we need to pay attention. If he is out, what's his team going to do? No LeBron, who I think might miss another couple. Of course, no Rondo. Does Mick Beasley slip in there? But even he has been out with the death of his mother. I apologize if that's incorrect. I'm pretty sure his mother just died recently. So condolences to Bees and the rest of his family. But he's been out pretty much all season. Who do we get playing there? Does Flaming Mo Wagner come in? I already done one rant on organizations today. Get prepared for the Memphis and the Lakers section of this show as well. There's going to be some words said there, but the future MVP, just a name to watch. If he goes out, I literally don't know. They're going to have Ingram at the 4, maybe, and you're going to get more Lance Stevenson, maybe more Svi Mikhailiuk in there as well, but not going to be necessarily must-roster type of players. Let's go on now and have a look at these games, the 9 of them, in a bit more detail. As we like to do on this podcast, was I like to do, and hopefully you like to listen to. Just struggling to find what I'm doing here. Maybe I'll take this moment to have a sip of tea because my voice is really struggling. All right, hopefully that helps out. Let's go here to this first game. There was a shit ton of blowouts in this game, in this day as well. The first one, the Miami Heat blowing out the Cleveland Cavaliers. Tyler Johnson, a strong game from him, 16 points, 4 assists, 3 steals, 60% shooting, but still just the 26 minutes. And again, as I talked about, Dwayne Wade has got to come back here. Dion Waiters' role. Where does Johnson fit? This is a 12-team line, no doubt about that. But when I try and extrapolate it out for the next 2 weeks or so, I don't think that he is a 12-team regular player. Joshie Richardson, 24 points with 5 assists. Well, Bam Adebayo was solid. I can't wait for Bam to be a starting center here. 8, 5, and 5, while Olynyk had 10 and 6. It wasn't a great Whiteside night. Scooter Magruder played 21 minutes. There's no way in the world I believe that he should be starting on this team if they were fully healthy. 21 minutes, 10 points for him. It's just an infatuation by Spoelstra. While Justice Winslow, this is the thing that I talk about with Winslow. The 7 assists are nice, the 1 steal is nice, but he'd been floating in the top 30 because he was averaging 2.6 steals per game and shooting over 50% from the field. But when his shot doesn't go in, which is the majority of the time, Spoelstra cuts his minutes. Only 27 minutes here. It was a blowout, yes, but Richardson still played 32. Derek Jones played 31 minutes. 10, 4, and 7 for Winslow. He's still a 12-team league guy, but that run he was having was entirely unsustainable in my opinion, and this is the reason why, because he just was never that good of a shooter. But shout out to Dion Waiters for making his season debut. I think this was like 13 months since he last played with that ankle problem. 7 points in, I think it's like 2 years since he actually heard it the first time. 7 points, 11 minutes, 3 assists. You're only adding him in, say, 20-teamers. I don't think he's going to be a 12-team league guy under any sense, but it is going to impact Tyler Johnson. It's going to impact Derek Jones. It's probably going to impact Scooter Magruder as well. But Waiters is a guy, needs 30, much like Austin Rivers, he needs like 35 minutes a night and 28% usage to really come close to that top 100 value, and I don't think that's what he's going to get here. As for the Cavs, Larry Drew, your mate, 23 minutes for Tristan Thompson in his return because Drew had to get him straight back into the starting lineup. 14 points with 2 steals, and the guy who's been killing it, Larry Nance, played only 22 minutes. That is as red flaggish as it gets. I'll give you the positive on it. It was against Hassan Whiteside and the Heat, so we've seen him be limited against Whiteside because, again, Drew doesn't know how to coach. And Nance was still productive. 6, 5, and 6 with 3 steals and a block on 60%. That's still really, really good. But the fact that Thompson came back from a foot injury, started and played 23 minutes, and Nance played only 22 minutes in that first game back makes me absolutely shit scared for what's going to happen in the coming weeks. And then when Kevin Love comes back, the dream is almost assuredly over. Now, I'm not dropping Nance because that's obviously still a top 100 line there. 6, 5, 6, 3 steals, that's top 100. But is he going to go back to playing 18 minutes a night? My magic 8 ball says all signs point to yes. And that's really troubling for this team and this coach who doesn't really know what he's doing. So I do worry a little bit about Nance's value there. If there's any semblance of sell high ability, and I mentioned that on the Sell High podcast, which was released about 4 hours before this game tipped off, maybe 3 hours, because he was like a top 20 player, like sell the shit out of him. Maybe a little bit too late now after this game. Rocket Rodney Hood also returned 13 points with 2 steals and a block. He's just a points and threes type of streamer. But with him back, with Thompson back, Jordy Clarkson only the 25 minutes, he'd been getting around 30 a night and being useful. But I worry that with Hood back and now Paddy McCaw in the fold, that he won't get quite as many minutes. So he's a tentative hold. As for McCaw, 18 minutes, 2 points, 1 steal. Trying to sort out how he gets more minutes than this is a little bit troublesome. David Nwaba was injured in this one, so where does he fit in? We still had 15 unnecessary minutes from Jalen Jones, so perhaps that could go to Nwaba. But McCaw is only going to be that deep league guy, while the Padawan Colin Sexton had 4 assists. I think he had 4 assists in about the first 10 minutes and then not another one for the rest of the game. 12, 4, and 4, 33% shooting, just another piss-poor performance from a fantasy point of view at least. He is not a 12-team league guy. Alec Burks also isn't. A lot of people roster Alec Burks, and they shouldn't. 9 points in 27 minutes for him. Now, if Tristan Thompson was helping you before his injury, go ahead and add him again, because I think he's going to push back up to those 30 minutes a night relatively quickly. This voice is really struggling. Dallas and Charlotte, a huge blowout for the Mavericks, almost a 40-point victory. Dennis Smith has been very impressive since returning from his injury. 18 points, 7 assists, and 3 steals. He's available in 29% of Yahoo leagues. Go and add him in 12-10 leagues. I would definitely have him over Tyler Johnson, over Reggie Jackson, for example. I would have Smith over him, no doubt. And because this game was such a blowout, there's very little to talk about. Doncic played only 26 minutes. The big performance that probably what's the word I'm looking for? Attracts your attention, your gaze is drawn to it, is Dwight Powell, who played 24 minutes and had 15 and 8 with 2 threes, a steal and a block. But that's because Dirk played only 7 minutes in this game. DeAndre Jordan played only 24. Maxi Kleber played only 12. So Powell got extended run, and that's not necessarily going to happen every night. So don't overreact to that. Onto the Hornets side of things, Devontae Graham started in place of Jeremy Lamb. 10 points. It took him 13 shots to get there, 23% conversion. Shithouse. 2 threes and 2 steals is nice. And as long as Lamb is out, I imagine Graham starts, especially considering Monk hurt his ankle here. Now, Malik Monk played 5 minutes, hurt it. The Hornets said he was available to return. He never did. We know that ankle injuries derailed the start of his rookie campaign. I think he also suffered another ankle injury this summer too, or maybe it was a shoulder. I think it was his ankle again. That's a real worry, and that can have a big impact on him. So with Lamb out, he was the guy that you wanted to look at, but now maybe it is Graham with that injury. The center position, Hernan Gomez was the guy that I said to add, but I also said be careful because they were going to run 5 blokes through that spot. And that's pretty much what happened. 18 minutes for Bill Hernan Gomez, 16 minutes for Frank the Tank Kaminsky, 15 minutes for Bismack Biyombo, and elevation in minutes for Miles Bridges. He played 24, and then there's Kid Gilchrist there as well. So you're not getting 28 minutes out of Hernan Gomez. I said about low 20s, 23. He went under that today. I still think he's a solid ad, but that's the sort of thing we're going to have to be paying attention to with Biyombo, Kaminsky, and Bridges all taking some of those minutes. As for Miles, 8 points on 9 shots is not good. I've been impressed with him this season, but the path to relevancy in standard leagues isn't happening. This game was that much of a blowout that JP Macura played 14 minutes after he was called up from the G League. Marvin Williams struggled, 10 points in 22 minutes. He's as unsexy as they get, and I must admit I've got a thing against Marvin Williams for fantasy, and as soon as he struggles, I'm pretty quick to drop him because I just don't like what he does. He's just not exciting and not consistent, and that's a combination that I don't like. The Atlanta Hawks and the Washington Wizards, another blowout. The Undertaker, Dwayne Dedman, 27 minutes, 6 and 9 with a steal and a block, but Alex Len was the big man star, 24 and 11 with 3 blocks, shared the court with Dedman for a few minutes as well. He's been much better this season than what he was in Phoenix. He had an underrated season last year. I don't think that this is a signal to go and add Len in 12-teamers, maybe 14ers, definitely 16-teamers, while the Baptist John Collins, 21, 8 and 3 with 4 triples. Now, someone posted something on the Basketball Monster page, and again, I encourage everyone to become a member of Basketball Monster. We have, the projections over there, historical stats, discussions, player comments, all that sort of stuff, and someone put a comment up. Is it time to update his defensive projections? His numbers seem inflated given he's just averaged 0.5 blocks and 0.1 steals on the season. And I think what it's important to mention is just how ridiculously low his numbers are. Because he has played 623 minutes this season and has 1 steal. That is almost impossible to do. Last season he had 47 steals, going at half a steal per game. Last season, 0.6. Last year was at 0.6 steals and 1.1 blocks. This year he's at 0 steals and 0.5 blocks. So an absolutely ludicrous reduction in his defensive numbers, and maybe he's paying more attention to the offensive end. A huge usage spike, almost 6 percentage point usage spike, but he's going to get more than 1 steal this season. That's going to come back up, and I do have some decent faith that that'll return. So this might be an okay buy low for the Baptist, and you could look at him, I think, as a top 50 guy where those defensive numbers are holding him back from that. Trae Young, who I talked up about his shooting yesterday, he was shit. 5 points on 8 shots with 9 assists, but the assists at least were still there. While Kevin Huerter, 44 minutes for Huerter, 12 points with 5 assists, 14 shots. What this should do, it's not the greatest performance, shooting-wise especially, but what it should do is it should tell you that this game, plus the last game where he played 40 minutes as well, I believe, gives you an indication that they just want to pump minutes into him. The Bulls. This is what you need to do with your young guys. Pump the minutes into your young players. So when Bazemore returns, when Prince returns, Hurt is still going to start and he's going to play 30 minutes a night. I'm pretty confident with that. Bembry had 11 and 7. He's a fringy sort of guy. For the Wizards, Brad Beal had 24, 4 and 6 with 2 steals, while Jeff Green,
My name is Jeff.
36 minutes, 22 points, 6 rebounds, and 6 assists. And I believe there was a stat today from Fred Katz. The starting five played 27 minutes together in this game, which is an absolutely ludicrous amount. Scott Brooks got criticised heavily in OKC for not staggering Russ and KD. It appears that he has absolutely no idea how to do that. And could you not pay someone to come in and say, Scott, it's actually pretty easy to do. Have him sit down and play 2K and play with the rotations thing. It's not that hard. I don't know why he can't do it. As for Green, big game from Jeff in this one, but with Otto Porter back. Now, Porter was on a minutes limit in this game, just the 14 minutes. That will switch around. Although, unless whatever issue is still ailing the relationship between Porter and Brooks early in the season, unless that's still manifesting, then maybe we get a limited role from Porter. I'm not so sure that's going to be the case. It was bad from Trevor Ariza, 12, 5 and 4 and 15 shots, but okay, enough still to hold. While Thomas Satoransky, he's still around 41% of leagues. Please go and add him. He is a must-add 12-team league player. I think he's pretty close to must-add in 10-team as well. This is a top 70 type of guy, I believe anyway. 14, 11, and 7 with 2 steals on 50% shooting, and usually he's a bloody good free throw shooter, just 50% here on 6 attempts. Otherwise, this would have been a fantastic line. Go and add him. He needs to be added. Simple as that. His refusal to play Troy Brown is also pretty maddening. Shout out to you, Scott Brooks, still not in the worst coaches in the NBA list. Next up, I didn't even change these graphics. Apologies for you guys watching there on YouTube. Let's get back in the swing of things. His voice is throwing me off. Time for some more tea. All right, the next game, the New Orleans Pelicans and the Brooklyn Nets. Just a horrible loss for the Pelicans, 126-121. Tone Davis, who was oh so close to getting the monstrous line of the night, 34 and 26, 2 triples, 4 assists, 1 steal, and 3 blocks after having that gastric issue on New Year's Eve. He's a monster. Go and add Alfred Payton. He's available in 40% of leagues. He is a must-add guy as well. 25, 2 and 7. The 67% shooting is high, but this is a guy that can finish at 50% because he doesn't take shots that he can't hit. The scoring is high. The 27 usage is high, but he is a must-add player. Drew had 24 and 4. Julius Randle 21 and 4 with 2 blocks and bad free throws. And when Mirotic returns, I think that Randle is going to cop a pretty decent hit, to be honest. Or Eton Moore. This is what he does. 16 points, good shooting, nothing else. 1 rebound in 36 minutes. That's harder to do than it is. It's harder to do than it is not to do, really. And 2 steals. He's more of a stream type of guy, not a 12-teamer, in my opinion. While Solly Hill lost out, as did Timmy Frazier, 7 and 9 minutes respectively for those guys. Frazier, you can just go back to the deepest of deep leagues. On to the Brooklyn Nets. D'Angelo Russell and Ed Davis returned from resting. Russell had 22 with 13 assists and 2 steals in 35 minutes, an elite performance, while Dinwiddie struggled a little bit in this one, 18 points with 4 assists. Rowdy Rodions Kurucs, 10 points, 2 triples, 1 block. Alan Crabb's out for the next couple of weeks, and I think that more and more likely, the more I think about this, and I think about Rowdy Rodions Kurucs every day, the more I think about it that he will be the starter for the rest of the season, and it won't be Crabb. Let's be honest, Crabb has been shit for most of this season. Kurucs has been up and down. I don't think he's a must-roster guy, and he'll clearly be behind Payton or Satoransky in terms of guys that you're looking at in 12-team formats. He's a must-add 14-teamer, and I think he can be a 12-team guy. But some of those early performances were maybe a little bit inflated. No Rondé Hollis-Jefferson, so we got more minutes from Shabazz Napier, 12 points in his 24, while Smoke and Joe Harris dropped in 21. He'd been struggling a little bit. That's back to 12-team numbers. And if you're panicking on Jarrett Allen, 10 and 11, 1 steal, 2 blocks, 31 minutes, the most important stat there for Jarrett. He is still, it was a bumpy ride, no doubt. He was struggling. He's still a standard league guy. I'm pretty confident in saying that. The Detroit Pistons beat the Memphis Grizzlies 101-94. Reggie Jackson strong from him. 31 minutes, 16, 7 and 5, a steal and 2 blocks. And importantly, it came on the second night of a back-to-back. So that's big from him. While Blakey Griffin had 26, 8 and 7. And Drummer, it was a shit night from Drummond. 11 and 10, 31% from the field, 60% from the line. He just has these inexplicably bad shooting nights, and it's so frustrating. Bruce Brown
Baby shark do 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 do.
started again, had 3 points in 20 minutes, but it's the Duck Luke Kennard. He's the best option there on the wing. He's better than Reggie Bullock, I think. Stan Johnson, Glenn Robinson, Bruce Brown. 13 and 5 for Kennard in 27 minutes. I'm going to need to see this a lot more before I add him in anything more than the very deep leagues. While Stan Johnson, coming back from that thigh bruise, played 6 minutes. Unfortunately, Kyle, if you're listening to this, I think the Stanley Johnson for MVP dream is dead. Shout out to Shannon McEwen as well for the t-shirt that he got, Kyle, the Stanley Johnson MVP t-shirt. I'm here for it. Langston Galloway, 11 points in 19 minutes with 3 triples. I told you this yesterday, that this is the most up and down guy you will ever find, and he's just as likely to come out and have a big game today. I think he went scoreless last game with like 2 rebounds. He's unpredictable, to say the least. On to the Grizzlies. The reports from Shams Charania after the game that Garrett Temple and Omri Caspi had an altercation. Apparently it didn't get physical, or overly physical after the game, but there is a lot going wrong with this team. They started out hot, but JB Bickerstaff is a bad coach. The hiring process that they went through to hire him was a terrible hiring process, and they did play well to start the season, but his decision-making is absolutely shitful lots of times. Now, they struggled in this one because Conley was almost as bad as you can get. 0 points, 3 rebounds, and an assist on 0 and 8 shooting, and as I mentioned, he was dealing with that shoulder injury. But there are just so many things wrong that Bickerstaff does with this team that it's infuriating. But one thing I can't do here is criticize the use of Jaren Jackson Jr. He played him until he fouled out, which I think he's done maybe 3 times this season. 35 minutes, 26 and 10 with 2 triples on 73% shooting. This is the guy that in 2 years' time is going to be clearly the best player on your team. Clearly. Not even close. Playing him 22 minutes so that JaMychal Green's ass can go out there and plod around for 6 points in 35 minutes is bullshit. And I don't care how many fouls he has. He's a strong defender, a dynamic offensive player. He needs to be playing. And this is a go in the right direction. If you ever get the thought in your head, should I drop Jaren Jackson Jr., think about tweeting it to me, and then also think about the fact that I will quote tweet you and say never. It's simple as it's going to be. Do not drop this guy. He is excellent. The treatment of him by Bickerstaff is nowhere near what Boylan's doing with Carter, but Jackson's also a better player than Carter. He's really, really strong. 11 and he's going to be a top 10 fantasy guy, I think, in at the end of his rookie contract, would be my guess. Initially, I was top 25. I think he can be better. Marcus Gasol, 11 and 7. Kyle Anderson, still available in way too many leagues, 15 and 5 with a block, while Dylan Brooksy Brooks scored 14 points in his 18 minutes. Hot shooting, still just really, really a deeper league guy. Good old puncher number 1, Garrett Temple, had 7 points in 37 minutes. He had a little stretch of being a 12-team guy. He is clearly not that guy anymore. While Joakim Noah, only 4 minutes. His minutes are continually going down and down and down. Just get rid of him. Play Ivan Rabb there. What is the point of Noah? He's shown really nothing to make me think that he's anywhere close to the Defensive Player of the Year, Joakim Noah. He's seeing the minutes be cut, which I applaud Bickerstaff for. That's a positive there as well. But there's no need for it. There's also no need for 23 minutes of Shelvin Mack when we could be playing Wayne Selden or Marshawn Brooks those minutes. It's just nonsense decisions from this guy pretty constantly. Let's go on to the next game. The Minnesota Timberwolves got beaten by the Boston Celtics, 115-102. Towns started a bit slowly, but ended up with 28, 12, and 7, which is great. While my man Tyus Jones, 14 points, 9 assists, and 4 steals. This guy is good. If this guy was the starting point guard in Orlando, he'd be a top 60 fantasy guy. He's restricted free agency is going to be very interesting heading up into the summer to see where the teams are. Man, him in Phoenix would be unbelievable. But now when Teague and Rose return, he's going to go back and play 13 minutes a night. So these numbers are great, but they're just not going to last. That's the problem, but it's fantastic. Andy Wiggins played 43 minutes in a blowout. He sat the last 3 minutes of the game, I believe, so played every minute up until the last 3 minutes when Tibbs finally conceded. He had 31 points, 3 assists, no defensive numbers, good efficiency, a strong game from Wiggo, but that playing, it's insane. It's literally insane. What? I don't think Thibodeau will give you this excuse, not that I've spoken to the bloke, but I know what he would say. I don't trust my bench guys. They're not as good as my starters. But he has absolutely no understanding that when a bloke plays every single minute of the game, fatigue impacts performance and guys struggle. So when you're playing someone like Wiggins 43 minutes a night, who's not that good, getting a fresh James Nunnally in there. Last season it was Marcus George's Hunt, CJ Williams, playing them 10 minutes. Now Nunnally did play in this one, but 2 minutes 40, that's not enough. you might actually save Wiggins to be healthy, to have burst, to be concentrated. Not only do your physical attributes go, the mental attributes go as well. It's bullshit. It's ludicrous. 9 points for Tone Tolliver in his 26 minutes. He was back in the rotation, while even without Covington, Saric played just the 22 minutes. He is as droppable as they get in 12-team formats, and to be honest, maybe even 14-teamers. For the Celtics, no Kyrie Irving, so Gordon Hayward went off. 32 minutes, 35 points, 4 triples and 5 assists. Now, there's a couple of things to pay attention to here. Hayward's usage has been under 20% for most of this season. Kyrie sits, it goes to 33%. That is key. That is massive. He also shot 78%, and is a guy who's shooting around 40% from the field over the course of the season. So that looks great, but there are definitely factors. Now, I said that I think he was a 10-team droppable guy and really borderline in 12-teamers. It looks really dumb of me to say that based on this game, but 33% usage, 78% shooting, two numbers that will not be the same. They will not continue, and when Kyrie's back, he's found it hard fitting in with Hayward. Hayward doesn't really know his place. The minutes are down, the percentages are down. It feels like he loses confidence when he doesn't get the shots, and that's what's sort of been happening for him this season. So while, again, it sounds dumb to say that maybe he's not a 10-team league guy based on this performance, there are things there which don't make me go, oh, he's turned the corner, because now he's going to be a 78% shooter midfielder. He looked better, no doubt about that. It was a strong game, and I'm happy for the guy. But got to try and look at it analytically and figure out if that's a repeatable performance. Marcus Smart had the 8 assists and 2 steals, so they're the categories you're streaming him for or you're adding him for, while Al Horford's still limited with those minutes. I'd think that Horford might be limited for quite a while here, to be honest. It's more of a chronic condition, this knee tendonitis, so that is a little bit of a concern. Jaylen Brown backed up his big game with a stinker, 10 and 5. The 1-1's still nice, but not much more there. While Marcus Morris was working on a Detroit Morris game, 12 points on 9 shots, 33%. You're still holding him, but let's just see how this neck injury actually goes down. Not a great game from Tatum either, 8, 3, and 4. Let's go on to the next game. The Orlando Magic blew out the absolutely shitful Chicago Bulls, 112 to 184. Vucevic played through his calf issue, 22 and 12, 2 steals and 3 blocks. Man, if you're a center, you just want to go up against the Bulls because you're going to get numbers. Terry Ross went off. Aaron Gordon got himself back into form with a career-high 9 assists, 18 points and 7 rebounds for Azar. While John Isaac, the defense was there, a steal and 2 blocks. I think he is a luxury stash type of a guy. If you're in a competitive situation where you might be struggling a bit, I don't think you can hold. I still believe this guy is going to be a really good player. The usage of him, not his on-court usage, but playing time and role is a little bit worrisome in terms of how Clifford is utilizing him and the playing time. And the offensive ineptitude at times from Isaac is clearly holding him back. And I think that he is a droppable guy. Well, DJ August had played through the ankle problem, 10, 2, and 6. He didn't need to exert himself. He's still an okay 12-team league guy at this point. Fournier also added 7 assists too. For the Bulls, Dunn, 14, 3, and 4. Markkanen, 14 and 6 in 28 minutes apiece. While Big Shaq Harrison played an astonishing 26 minutes.
Big Shaq.
On a team that's as putrid as this, now I think Shaq Harrison's fine. I like him. He shouldn't be playing double the minutes that Wendell Carter Jr. is playing. He still brought the steals, which is nice for us, but that should never be happening. Zachary Levine, 16 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists. He had a 0-0. Shot the ball well, 6 of 10 from the field, but I think that top 25, top 20 numbers from the start of the season is a long way away. Justin Holiday was bad as well, so was this whole team was bad. 3 points in 26 minutes with a 3-on-1 of 7 shooting. He is that steals and threes guy who is going to kill your field goal percentage. Pretty straightforward there, Justin Holiday. And I think there's a massive chance he's not on this team for very much longer. The Philadelphia 76ers beat the Suns 132-127. Redick had 27 with 5 triples. Jim Butler and Baby Neck Wilson Chandler were both ruled out with an illness here, so a bit of a weird starting lineup. Furkan Korkmaz started for Butler, had 10, 4, and 3 with 2 triples. While Jonah Bolden, thought he was impressive, actually. Net rating was really strong, but 4 fouls limited him to just 16 minutes. 4, 4, and 2. I think that Bolden might be an every night part of the rotation. He's clearly ahead of Amir Johnson. I think he could push ahead of Mike Muscala, to be honest. And he becomes a deeper league guy to pay attention to. Timothy John McConnell had the 6 assists, had the steal as well. Benny Simmons, 29 points, 3 rebounds, 6 assists, and a block at the end of the game. 23 free throw attempts is obviously a lot. 65% is better than what he's been doing, but on that sort of volume, that is an absolute killer for that category. That is just an absolute shit ton of free throws. He took 23, Embiid took 19, and Redick took 10. 54 three throws is just ridiculous. On to the Suns. Booker had 37, 2 and 8, while DeAndre Ayton, while he was being roasted by Embiid, still put up his own good numbers, 18 and 11, and of course no blocks. While DeAnthony Melton, I really like this guy, 10, 3 and 3, 2 steals and a block in 23 minutes. We're seeing him go where he should never have, but he went back to 18 minutes a night when Booker came back, and now we're pushing back into the mid-20s, 25, 26 minutes a night. He should be getting 26 minutes a night. Yeah, Jamal Crawford played 5 minutes in this game. That is a step in the right direction. They gave Ali Okobo 18. I just want to see 27 a night from Melton, and if you're looking to just get ahead of the next guy who I think is going to push into top 120, top 100 categorization, I think it's Melton, and he's 97% available. Joshy Jackson had 16, 6 and 4. One of his better games with a 1-1. I'd leave him more for 14 team as well. It was a pretty bad night for McCall Bridges. No defense, 2 points on 8 shots is a disaster. While Kelly Oubre, he's just not good. I'll stand by this. He is not a good player. He is not a good fantasy contributor, and he is not anywhere close, in my opinion, a 12-team league guy. 9 points with nothing else. He hit a 3, sorry, and then nothing else. No rebounds, no assists, no steals, no blocks. He just doesn't do it for fantasy at all, in my opinion. The last game of the night, the Oklahoma City Thunder get the victory over the Lakers. The Beatle Paul George was ridiculous. 37, 4 and 2 with 4 steals on 52% shooting, 29 attempts. I feel pretty confident now in saying that he is the best player on this team. The fact that he broke his leg in such a horrific way, and I thought this is a legit injury that can ruin people's careers, and he could have come back and struggled and been a mediocre player for a couple of years, and it could have ruined him. Not only did he come back at the same level, he didn't come back at a level 1 gear higher. He has gone 5, 6 gears higher, and I don't know how it's happening. He's unbelievable. Shout out to you. And I don't even think he's that good of a bloke, but fantastic performance. Steve Adams, 14 and 15 with 2 blocks, while Westbrook just, triple-double, 14, 16 and 10. That's all sexy. 2 steals. Yeah, let's go. 2 blocks. Fantastic. 15% shooting on 20 attempts. Woof. 7 of 10 from the line. What is going on with this bloke? Why he cannot hit a shot at all? It is just an absolute disaster. In a roto league, you are not going to win with him on your team. If you are in a rotisserie league and you have Russell Westbrook, or better yet, go and tell me the person who has Russell Westbrook in your rotisserie league, where are they in the standings? I'm really curious to know. Jeremy Grant, 13 and 7. That's very ho-hum. Terry Ferguson, what a shock. He got injured again. He's literally injured every single game, I feel like. He just cops a bump, he cops a hit. Or Dennis Schroeder, 10, 7 and 6 in 29 minutes. I think he's really fringy in 12s. If you've got him, I'd drop him for Derek White, for Satoransky, for another guy whose name I mentioned earlier that I can't remember. I don't think that he's a must-hold 12-teamer. On to the Lakers. A bad loss for them. Yes, LeBron was out. Yes, Kuzma got injured. But they were in front here, and they choked it away late. This is a team, and I tweeted this out today, that has so many unbelievable advantages. They're in Los Angeles. No cold weather. They are the Lakers, the most storied franchise in basketball, clearly. American sports. Maybe you put them in the Dallas Cowboys. Maybe. They have an all-time charismatic, personable general manager in Magic Johnson, who everyone just wants to please. Yet they squander every opportunity they get. They can't hit free throws, and then a staggering. They don't believe in analytics. They make. Magic Johnson comes in and overrules their scouting department in terms of making draft choices, which happened this season as well. He goes on TV and tampers with Paul George and gets a fine. Then George doesn't come, and then they come out today saying, "Oh, maybe we should start doing free throws in practice and keeping a track of the players, how many they hit and how many they miss." Why is nobody doing this? You're struggling from the line. You hit 59%, and you're not keeping a track of what you're hitting. You're not tracking improvement. You're not tracking regression. You're not tracking different routines. Who's running this show? You have got the number one advantage, and the only reason you're screwing it up is because there are dumb people involved. It's simple as that. Just ridiculous. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope had another strong game, 25 points with 5 triples and 2 steals, and JaVale McGee. Only the 20 minutes for JaVale, but 4 blocks, 15 points, and 8 rebounds is pretty strong. Ivica Zubac didn't play the first half, played 10 minutes in the second half because, of course, why not? 8 points for him. Hit all 4 of his shots. He's not a 12-team league guy, obviously, with McGee back in action. While Brandon Ingram, this was okay in the counting stats, 17, 11, and 5. But no threes, no steals, a block, and 38% shooting. Can't hit free throws. He just is so frustrating as a player, and throws up different performances every single day. I want to talk bad shooting nights. Lonzo Ball was terrible. 3 and 4, 7 assists is nice, 1 steal is nice, 2 blocks is nice, 1 of 4 from the field is horrendous, and 1 of 5 from the line is absolutely disgusting. He's still a must-roster guy, but you've got to factor all that into the calculations when you've got him. While Josh the Hitman Hart had 15 rebounds. He's one of the best rebounding guards in the NBA. 13 points in 38 minutes with a triple one. Percentages were off. He's not going to have value when LeBron James returns. I think that should be pretty clear. All righty then. Let's move on now to some DFS action to round out today's podcast. We'll look at the perfect lineups, starting off with DraftKings for Wednesday. Satoransky, JJ Redick, Jeff Green, Anthony Davis, Joel Embiid, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Tom Bryant, and Alex Len for a total of 409.75, and that costs 50,000. While on FanDuel, Satoransky, Rozier, D'Angelo Russell, Redick, Derek Jones Jr., Gordon Hayward, Anthony Davis, Josh Jackson, and Joel Embiid totaled 450.2, and that costs 59,100 $. All right, let's look at this limited Thursday slate in the NBA. Only 3 games on. It's one of those ones where I reckon you try to avoid playing DFS as much as possible. I'm sure many of you won't be able to avoid it at all, but this would be one of those games that I would look to do that in. Just the 3 games on, as I mentioned. The first game we look at, of course, is one for all of the revenge game people to get themselves really, really, really turgid, because Kawhi Leonard is going back to San Antonio to take on DeMar DeRozan and the San Antonio Spurs. The Spurs are currently 1.5 point favorites. The total is 216.5. The amount of Kawhi vitriol already on social media and just lame ass jokes, man. Oh, he probably's not going to play a fake quad injury. Cool. No worries, guys. It's going to be interesting to see this one, to see how both Kawhi goes against his former team and, of course, DeMar DeRozan taking on the Toronto Raptors. Kyle Lowry, unlikely to play. He is doubtful, while Rudy Gay is doubtful as well. Last time Gay missed, we saw Jakob Poeltl move into the starting lineup. That might be a little bit harder to do against the Raptors' front court of Siakam and Ibaka, and we might see more Dante Cunningham or more Davis Bertans in there. Popovich is always likely to change things up, so we'll see exactly how all of that goes. Looking at this from a DraftKings perspective, let's look at the point guards. Freddie VanVleet at 5,700. He's got a pretty strong floor. The upside's been relatively limited lately, averaging just 23 over his last 5, which isn't quite where it needs to be. I do think there is an opportunity here for VanVleet, but he hasn't quite been living up to that number. While Bryn Forbes at 4,400, a similarly good floor, a cheaper price, and a guy who's giving us 24 points as well. Over the last 5 games, which is relatively strong at 4,400. So I think both of those guys do have some value here. On the Spurs side, we're looking at Derek White, who is at 4,700. He is putting up big numbers, 30 average over the last 5, 34 over the last 3. He's not heavily reliant on scoring. He can do it defensively as well. I do like Derek White pretty much as one of the better cheap point guard options on the slate. At shooting guard, DeMar DeRozan at 7,800. He's been giving us around 40 a night, which is fine at this sort of a zone. No reason to really consider him a guy to fade or anything along those lines. Dan Green against his former team. We know that Green is always just a GPP guy because of his inconsistency. For the small forwards, Davis Bertans at 38. I think it's a real opportunity for him. I don't know that they'll go with Poeltl starting. I think Bertans is in play there. It's still just more for tournaments, though. While the fun guy, Kawhi Leonard,
I'm a fun guy.
8,800 for Kawhi. That's pretty impossible, I believe, to fade. I really, really like Leonard there at that sort of a salary. For the big men, Poeltl's at 3,500. If you think they're going to go that way, there could be some GPP value there against his former team. While LaMarcus Aldridge, after that early season slump, is cranking at the moment. 51 average over the last 3. No reason for him to not get close to 45 again here. I really like LaMarcus in this matchup. While Ibaka at 56 has been struggling a little bit since coming back from the knee injury, but still averaging 30 points, getting some blocks in there. So I think he's a worthwhile option, but big men have struggled so far against the Spurs this season, so that's a little bit frustrating there. I'd probably leave him more as a tournament guy, while Siakam at 6,200. I constantly feel like he's just $200 to $400 overpriced, and I think we're in that similar sort of boat here again with Pascal. On FanDuel, Bertans and Pirtle again with that tournament value. I like Aldridge, I like DeRozan, I like Van Vliet, I like Leonard a lot there. I think Siakam at 7,000 again just comes in probably a little bit too high, while Derek White at 6,100, a huge price bump on FanDuel. That takes some of his value away, but he's been exceeding that 36 over the last three. And 36 at 6,100 is a pretty good number. So I would consider him, but it is a relatively negative matchup for him against these Toronto Raptors. Next up, the Denver Nuggets and the Sacramento Kings. The Nuggets are favoured by 3. The total is 227.5. The Nuggets are getting themselves back to full health. Still no fight in Will Barton, and I'd imagine Paul Millsap and Gary Harris will still be on minutes restriction. The starting lineup, will they keep Torrey Craig and Mason Plumlee in there? I think if they make a change, we'll see Millsap in over Plumlee, and we'll have Harris running off the bench one more time. Jamal Murray's at 7,300. Oh, quick note, actually, Marvin Bagley has been upgraded to doubtful. Originally thought he was out for another couple of weeks, but then surprisingly upgraded to doubtful for today's game. So he's, today, Friday, Thursday, whatever day we're talking about here. So unlikely to play, but good to see that he's been upgraded. The point guards, the Blue Arrows, 7,300 for Jamal Murray. Struggled a little bit last game, and by a little bit I mean a lot. He played 32 minutes for only 23 points. It is a real positive matchup, an up and down sort of a game. I still think that it's more just for tournaments, while De'Aaron Fox at 7,500 was really poor last time out, but prior to that, he'd been giving you 40 a night relatively consistently, and I think that he can go back to doing that here. One of the big surprises on this Denver Nuggets team is Malik Beasley at 4,900. He dropped 43 last game, with Barton unlikely to return here, or not returning, and Gary Harris still limited. There is something there in Beasley. I'm not ready to fully lock in. The 4,900 is an okay price tag, but it's jumped by $800 on DraftKings. So that takes a level of the value away from Malik there. But there is still some tournament appeal. While Monty Morris at 45, I think the return of Harris is put a little bit of a nail in the coffin there. Budrick Hills at 6,300. Absolutely on fire last game, Hield was. He's averaging 30 over the last 5, dropped 43 last game. It is a relatively negative matchup, but I'm happy to go in with him. But I'm happier to go with Bogdan Bogdanovic at 5,800, who's giving us 30 a night pretty consistently. I like that floor, really rock solid. Iman Shumpert, not happening, while Gary Harris at 4,800. That price isn't really good, but with the minutes likely limited, I don't think we can go in that direction. On the wings, you got Bielitsa and Justin Jackson. Nemanja Bielitsa at 5,300. He dropped a casual 40 last game. We've still got no Bagley around, so I think there is some value at 5,300 for Bielitsa. A relatively safe floor in a relatively positive matchup, while Juancho has struggled of late. Not interested in Juancho Hernan-Gomez here. For the big men, Jokic at 9,800.
Pretty good. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I love this matchup for Jokic. I love what he's doing in general, averaging 55 over the last 3, while Cauley Stein at 6,500. I think that might be a bit too much for Will. I don't hate it, and there've been some decent center performances against the Nuggets, but I think there are better ways out there to spend your big man money. And then you got Millsap at 5,200. He had just 22 minutes last game, but had 34 points, and at 5,200, it's a really nice, cheap price that does absolutely garner consideration. If they announce that he's starting at 5,200, I think you've got to be all over Millsap there. The other guys, Kufos, Mason Plumlee, not really interested in those guys. Over on FanDuel for this one, Hield and Jokic look strong. Cauley Stein at 7,600 maybe is a tournament guy, given some of the other lack of options on FanDuel. The 49 for Malik Beasley is a more appealing 49 than the one on DraftKings as well. And the Blue Arrow at 8,000, probably a little bit more appealing for Jamal Murray and De'Aaron Fox at 87. I think that might be too high for Foxy. That is a really expensive price tag for a guy who can be a little bit fluky with some of the shooting percentages. The last game of the night, the Houston Rockets and the Golden State Warriors. The Warriors are favored by 8. The Rockets are playing really, really well. That's a really big spread. The total is 225.5 points here. Jim Ennis has been upgraded to probable for the Rockets, while if anybody cares, Jacob Evans is probable for the Warriors. At point guard, Jimmy Harden's at $11,000. He's averaging just the casual 71 over the last 3. Yes, the Warriors have restricted him in the past, but he's going to be getting as much opportunity as he can here. It's hard to build a team without him, I believe. 9,500 for Steph is okay. I think there are better DraftKings options around in spending your money, while Austin Rivers at 46 with Eric Gordon out. There's something there for Rivers, but remember, he had 19 points last game in 41 minutes. He just isn't a big accumulator of fantasy numbers, especially when someone else is getting the usage, and in this case, that someone is James Harden. Klay Thompson's at 6,100. It's an appealing price tag, no doubt about that, but I don't think that it's a must-lock sort of a guy in cash. There is some tournament value in Klay, but not the super strongest guy. Well, Jim Ennis, Gerald Green, Daniel House, all those guys have had occasional performances. I wouldn't be really locking any of them in. Gerald Green to me is the guy who can get the hottest, so that makes him the most tournament valuable player. I love Kevin Durant coming in at 9,200. He has been a little bit limited against the Warriors, against the Rockets, averaging just 39 the last 3 times out. But 92 is a really cheap price. You won't very often find Durant at that sort of a salary. For the big men, Capella's at 6,900.
Giggity!
I like what Capella can do against the Warriors. He's averaging over a fantasy point per minute against them. He should be seeing 34 to 35 minutes. One of the centers who stays on the court the best against them. And remember, the narrative against the Warriors is different this season. Centers do put up big numbers against them, where in the past it was almost a death knell for their fantasy vote. It's definitely changed around. Draymond's at 5,900. I love that price tag for Green. I'm happy to use him here. I think there's cash value and tournaments. Urepko, Looney, nay, I don't think we really need to be paying too much attention to any of those players. On FanDuel, now I like Austin Rivers a lot more there. 3,800 is a much more appealing price. Durant, James Harden, even though he's at 13,000, he is a good guy to have a look at. I like Capella at 86. I like Durant, as I said, and Gerald Green as that GPP guy at 3,700. Let's have a look now at the value plays. On DraftKings, it's Harden as my value, and my start and my value is Capella at 69. On FanDuel, my stud is Durant and my value play is Fred VanVleet. On Yahoo, my stud is Durant and my value play is Britney Forbes. And on DraftStars, my stud is Jokic and my value play is Fred VanVleet. That'll wrap it up for another Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast. Follow me on Twitter at @redrock_Beeble and subscribe to this podcast, or get your smart speaker to play the podcast Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Leave a 5-star review if you could as well. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya. Jim Boylan.